Here we have number 3. For number 3, we're asked to factor and solve for this equation. As you can see, we already have it in standard form. So this should be pretty easy to do with the box method. So here we have the ax squared term, as you see here. The ax squared term goes, almost overnight. The ax squared term goes here. The c term will be going here. And then we will be using these two terms, the ax squared term and the c term, and multiplying them. So 2x squared, that's not 2, 2x squared times the negative 2 will give us a negative 4x squared. And we're going to take this negative 4x squared and use it here. And we're also going to take this 3x here, our bx term, and plug it in down here. This is our setup to be able to factor this and solve for x using the box method. Now we need to find these two terms. We need to figure out what's going to multiply to the top number up here, the top term up there, and add up to the bottom term. To figure that out, usually I like to multiply, or I like to find the factors of the coefficient of my top number up here, which in this case, 1 and 4, and 2 and 2. Looking at the factors, it's pretty clear that if I want to add up to a 3 here, I'm not going to use 2 and 2, because if I add those I get 4, and if I subtract them I get 0. So I'm going to do 1 and 4. The question becomes, do I make my 4 positive or my 1 positive? Because I need one of them to be negative in order to give us this negative sign when we multiply. Well, we should make our 1 negative, because we want a positive answer when we add them up. And if you want your answer to be positive, the bigger number has to be positive. So 4x minus 1x will give us 3x, and 4x times 1x is equal to just, or negative 1x is equal to negative 4x squared. So we're using 4x and negative x. I'm just going to write negative x instead of negative 1x because they mean the same thing. We're going to take those two terms we found and take them and plug them in the box. Now we need to figure out what goes along the outside of these boxes. To figure out what goes along the outside, we need to figure out what's going to multiply, what this term and this term need to multiply to be this term where they meet up. See here, they meet in that position. So I'd recommend we put a 2x there and an x there. And it's probably best if you don't put the 2 up here for this case, because 2x times, you have to put a fraction here. You have to put a negative 1/2 to make this work when we multiply. And it's probably best if you just don't use fractions. If you can avoid them, I would. If you can't avoid them, then use them. But in this case, we can avoid the fraction. So let's avoid the fraction. So we have now 2x needs to multiply with this term here to give us a 4x. Now to do that, we need to put a 2 here, because 2 times 2x is going to give us 4x. Now to get this negative x down here, we need x times a negative 1, which would give us our negative x there. And then if you notice, it all works out. Negative 1 times 2 is going to give us a negative 2. So we have our two factored forms, or two factors of y equals x plus 2, 2x minus 1. What we do now is, since we're solving for x, we're going to make our y be 0. Because whenever you solve for x, you're solving for the x-intercepts of x. You're solving for the x-intercepts, which means your y needs to be 0. Now we can use the zero product property. The zero product property allows us to say that x equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0, and 2x minus 1 equals 0. The zero product property tells us that if I can change this into a 0, then this up here changes into a 0. And 0 times anything is just going to give us 0. And the same goes for the other term. So now we just need to solve for x. I'll set up these little train tracks here. Subtract 2 from both sides. So we get x equals -2 as one of our solutions. And over here, we subtract, or not subtract, we add a 1. We do the inverse operation. We add a 1 to both sides, and we get 2x is equal to 1. Now we need to divide both sides by 2, because 2x means 2 times x. Consistency's sake, let's get this a white. So now we have x is equal to 1/2, and that's our second solution. So let's say you would solve this equation by factoring. So here it is all in one shot.